Lifting Leaders podcast, where we're unleashing leader possibilities to make a better world. I'm Tricia Ryan, and together with Crystal Roberts, we're diving deeper into some of the complexities of the world's most critical challenges and exploring innovative ways of navigating through them.
Through interviews with experts and leaders just like you, we are exploring what it takes to thrive as a leader today and examining new ways of thinking about how to creatively lead into a more equitable, socially responsible, and sustainable future. And the future starts now. Hi, Tricia. How are you doing today?
I am doing great, Crystal. It's fall.
It is fall. It's so beautiful outside.
I know it's been fall for a little while, but I'm starting to actually recognize that the trees are changing and it's so pretty. Oh.
Yeah, I was just noticing the sun was coming through. I think it was a maple tree and the leaves were just like brilliant red.
Yes.
Yeah, so
yeah, the
pretty.
other day I was driving down just some random street, right?
Yeah.
And they had in the middle, the median between the two lanes, there were just like tree after tree after tree. And you could almost see at the beginning of the street how the tree at the beginning was sort of turning. But as I kept driving, it was like the colors were evolving. It was so bizarre. It was like, I don't know whether, I have no idea how that happened, but they're in their stage of changing right now. And it's so pretty. I just love it. It makes me want to get out of my car and take pictures with my cell phone. But usually I'm in traffic. Kind of hard to do that.
That's right. Yeah. One of my favorite things I used to do with the kids when they were little is we would go leaf hunting in the fall. And so you
leaf hunting. Well,
and so you'd find the most beautiful leaves. And then we would go home, kind of pat them dry. Mm-hmm. And then old crayons that we had, that we'd chop old crayons up, and you'd put out the leaves and the crayons on wax paper, and you put one on the bottom, arrange it, put another piece on top, and then you would iron it. You put a piece of paper over that, obviously. Iron it, and then you could put them up on your window. It looked like stained glass windows.
Oh, my
And they
gosh.
would stay for quite a while. Yeah, it was really fun.
Wow. Another leaf issue or story. My grandmother, my dad's mother, used to do kind of art with nature, and she loved to do that. But she would always go leaf hunting, and she took different leaves, and she would just make sure that they didn't have any flaws or whatever. Just arrange them on cardboard pieces, and then stack the cardboards, and then she would put her husband would lift, my grandfather would lift the bottom of the bed, and she would put a stack under each foot of the bed so that they had a lot of weight on them. Yeah. And it would flatten, make it sure that it was totally flattened, but it would also, while they dried, the cardboard would absorb the moisture. Yeah. And then she would take them and arrange them and make these beautiful pictures. It was pretty cool. Or she would make the leaf become something else, right? Yeah. It was just kind of cool. I never knew anybody who did anything like that. And I always thought it was kind of odd that the bottom of their bed was always higher than the top of their bed.
Might give you a headache. I'm not sure about that.
Well, they were used to it, I guess.
So fall. We love fall. We love transition. That's always our favorite thing to talk about, besides hope, right? Yes. Hope and transition. Hope plays an important role in transition. But today is a GEMS episode.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, thanks for bringing Josh to us.
Oh, Josh Speraneo is just amazing. I really enjoyed that interview. I thought it was, it just kind of made my heart happy that there is hope in recognizing the strengths that have to do with highly sensitive people, right? Yeah. And I don't know, I thought about it a lot after our interview, and I've listened to the recording again just to, get used to where we're going with it. It's like, but I just find that the second time I listened, I heard things that I just didn't even remember what we talked about, which is good. Every time you listen, you get something more.
Yeah, there was a lot packed into that episode. He had a lot of really good things to say.
It was very rich.
Yeah. So if you haven't listened to that episode, we encourage you to go back and to listen to it. And as Tricia was saying, if you have listened to it, maybe even another time, right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of goodness in there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In fact, I'm finding that a lot in our episodes lately, is that I go back and I listen again, and I get even more out of them. And we were the interviewers.
Yeah.
So what does that say? The person who didn't get to interview might just listen again and again. It's like a Harry Potter movie, you just keep watching it over and over again. You get something new every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe an onion where you're peeling the layers.
There you go.
Yeah.
I like that too. Okay. Metaphors.
We've got lots of metaphors going on here. But the area that we really wanted to dive in a little bit here, as we always do in our gems, is just to take one sort of kernel of an idea that came up in that episode, is around empathic leadership.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's such an important thing. And I think Josh did a great job of, talking us through how he sees that. We thought it was so important that, of course, we went out and got an article, right?
Yeah.
we reached over to Center for Creative Leadership that puts out some amazing articles, actually. I really love a lot of the things they do, and we've used them over the years, particularly during the pandemic, we used them. So,
yes. Yeah. We love Center for Creative Leadership because they're so research-based. They do a lot of their own research, and we all can benefit from that.
They really are. And that article that we've kind of landed on today is called, it says, Why Empathy at Work Matters and How to Encourage Empathic Leadership. And it's a really good article. It's not very long. And certainly if you go online, we'll put the link in our show notes so that everybody has a chance to go into it, because if you do get into it, there are a lot of additional links. You just keep clicking on things and it takes you somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that was really cool. I love that part of their articles too, their online articles, that when you click on them, there's so many different, it can take you to so many different resources. One of the things that I think is helpful is just starting with the definitions.
I was going to go there too. That's good.
We think alike, of course.
Of course we do.
And not.
I know.
Yeah, and I like the fact that they are talking about the difference between sympathy and empathy, and they say sympathy is typically defined by feelings of pity for another person without really understanding what it's like to be in their situation, while empathy, on the other hand, refers to the capacity or ability to imagine oneself in the situation of another, experiencing the emotions, ideas, or opinions of that person. Yeah, and I think what's really important about that is when we think about, as Josh was talking about, the highly sensitive people, we want to make sure that as leaders, we are responding to them with empathy.
Yes. I used to use the difference between sympathy and empathy in some of my workshops. And one of the things that I used to say is sympathy is, owning it. It's going in and owning somebody's issue. Yeah. And the problem with that is that if you don't really understand where they're coming from, their perspective, what their background was to get them to that point, you may completely miss the boat, and your sympathy won't be appreciated because people know that you're really not in sync with them. Where empathy, you're entering into it enough that you're walking in their shoes for a moment. You're putting it in your head. What if it were me? How would I feel? And that's such a different it's a different stance to take, because you can actually be helpful if I don't know exactly how you're feeling, but if it were me, I would feel this way. And it makes it easier for people to relate to each other.
Yeah. I also think when I think about sympathy and empathy, it's a little bit like coaching, where instead of us going in and being consultants and telling you this is what you need to do, because I don't believe that you actually can do it yourself, empathy is really saying, yeah, this is bad. Maybe I can support you, but ultimately you have the ability to solve whatever issue you have.
And I totally agree with you. I think that is the beauty of coaching, is that, we can stand with the person. We can give them the space they need and the that environment where they can think and risk and do all these things that be safe, right?
Yeah.
But we don't have to own their issue, because once we do, to your point, we're going to say, well, what you need to do is, and here's what you need to do, this, and this will make this happen. And it's not necessarily true, and it's not helpful.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I love that when you said standing next to the person and standing with the person.
Right.
I think that's such a good metaphor. And sometimes actually doing that.
So the article had, once we've got a definition here, how to show more empathic leadership. They had 4 ways to increase your empathy in the workplace. And I thought, this is pretty cool, that they've given you a little bit of a roadmap, but of course you have to build that, create the pavement, if you will. But the first one was watch for signs of burnout in others. And to me, what I got from that is to notice, to open your eyes and ears and scan the environment, right? Scan your environment and see what's going on. Notice what people's facial expressions are, or their body language, or notice if you can. I think when there's tension in a room, it's kind of hard not to feel it too, right? Especially if it's more than one person. Yeah. But, burnout is something that happens in any organization at any one time, and it's not always business related. Sometimes people bring their issues and challenges that are going on in their own life to work, and any challenge that happens at work becomes too much. Yeah. And so being able to recognize that and do something about it is really important, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really such an important topic right now, the burnout in others. And I know some people might say, oh, but we're living in such a virtual world. We can't really notice that. We can't really tell. But we can hear it, even if people don't have their cameras on. Yeah. But then asking people to have cameras on, I know that that's a little bit controversial, but that does allow us to add just a little bit more to be able to see how people are doing. Like you said, their facial expressions, and it's important.
It is important. And I do think that it is absolutely doable in the virtual world too. To your point, you can listen for signals and watch for signals if they're on camera. I just had something happen the other day that was like that. Yeah. And the person, have never seen this person be reactive or, distraught in any way. And just in 30 seconds, it was really clear that this person was in trouble on something. Yeah. And so to me, there is just watching, paying attention sometimes can be what it is, and not ignoring it. Right. It's too easy for us to, if we're afraid that being empathic might be a weakness or be seen as a weakness, we might just ignore it. It doesn't mean we feel good about it inside, but we might not want people to know that that we're going to help them. Yeah. And so I find that kind of sad because it is definitely a strength, right?
Yeah, it is. And it's not excusing people from their accountability to getting work done, but it is important to be able to recognize that and to say something about it. And it doesn't mean that you have to, again, solve their problem. Right. It's just listening and understanding. Yeah. So 2, show sincere interest in the needs, hopes, and dreams of other people. And that what matters to other people should matter to us as leaders. And the more that we know about this, even we might be able to figure out ways at work to make that happen for people, whether it's stretch assignments or making connections for people. It doesn't have to be always, about the specific project they're assigned to, but just understanding what people really want out of life is really important.
I know we have, where I work, we have employee resource groups, which are specific to, Asian American women and, Hispanic workers, people who have Hispanic heritage, and there are many of them. We have many employee resource groups, and you can join them all, or you can join ones that you really resonate with you. And I think those people who are going through struggles or whatever, if a leader can even talk about some of those, and say, we have other ways where you can meet with people who have either a like mind or have a common thread that enables somebody to have a new connection, because this is really about connection, right? Leadership. Yeah. And to me, that's not necessarily work related. It's definitely more, it's more cultural or more racial or more, lifestyle, whatever the interest is. Yeah. But it's nice for people to have something like that to to kind of connect with. And it's really good for a leader to keep in touch with stuff like that.
Yeah.
To just as another something they can use or share with someone, and to get involved themselves, right?
Yeah, yeah. This also makes me think about the Marcus Buckingham work that we talk quite a bit about, the love and work.
Yes.
So the more that we can understand where their loves are, where they feel like their strengths are, where their passion is, we can align work to support that.
Yes, and I'll just give him a plug. I know that he's out on doing speaking right now on that topic still. He's sort of evolving it a little bit, but I'm hopeful that he's going to come out with a love and work, 0.2 or something
2.0.
like that. Version 2.
Yeah.
2.0, yeah.
Yeah.
So the next one is demonstrate a willingness to help an employee with personal problems. And while you have to be kind of careful there because it's crossing a line, we're human. And leaders are human, and to be able to connect with somebody when they're going through something, even if it's something cool, like they're getting married or they're having a baby or whatever, or they've just having a huge family reunion. Those are like positive things, right?
Yeah.
But there are often things that are not so positive, and to be able to, offer an ear, and just be a good listener. I think that's such a huge thing about being a good empathic leader, is to give that person the floor and let them just talk. And sometimes they don't want to hear anything. They just need to be able to talk.
Yeah.
That's an empathic leader too.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's interesting too is because, like you said, we're all human and we all go through challenging times.
Yes.
So we know that people come out on the other side of that. And when they do, then they are so much more committed.
Yes.
Because they are grateful and appreciate the empathy that was given to them during that difficult time. And I can just think of my own personal experiences when I went through cancer and the empathy that I received from my team, but also my leader, really mattered.
Of course.
It really mattered.
Yeah.
And it was important during that time. It sort of kept my spirits high. But then afterwards, I just had this incredible gratitude for that. And it sort of wipes away some of the negative stuff that you experience when you're at work. So
it's a great example. And, that's a great example for a leader to know that you can do that. It's okay to do that, right? To your point, we've all been through things, and it doesn't mean you have to say, "Oh, I know that happened to me. I did this." That's not the point. The point is that someone just needs sometimes to be able to share. And if you've been through something, say, I went through something similar, and here's how I kind of navigated through it, and I'm feeling so much better that, I feel better on this end of it because now I've been through whatever. And sometimes that can go a long way, right?
Yeah. And that's really quite connected to the fourth one, which is show compassion when other people disclose a personal loss.
Yes.
So, we are human, and these things happen in our lives. And so it's important to really be empathetic when somebody experiences a personal loss.
And that personal loss can be extended to people like me who don't have children. I have a pet. And honestly, for me, that is my child, right? And it is for so many people. So, for people who don't really necessarily see a pet as a family member, but instead an animal that they have, that they own, then they may not be able to understand that. But to be able to try and enter into somebody else's world where that is their whole life, kind of, it's important. So, whatever that loss may be, it could be an inanimate object, right?
Yeah.
Object. So it's just it's an important thing to remember.
Yeah. I mean, it can be anything from, like you said, a pet. It could be a fire in your house. There's just all kinds of things that can come up.
Yeah.
It can even be a partner's job. I mean, there's
Yes.
so many things that can happen and so many things
good
that
point.
do, right, that happen in our lives.
Right.
But of course, I have a special affinity for when you were talking about the pet.
Yeah.
We love those people out there they're loving their pets, and they bring so much to our lives.
Yeah.
I think of now in the pet care industry, we don't talk about them as owners.
No.
They're pet parents.
Yes.
And so,
Mine is a fur kid.
Yeah.
Right?
They're important members of our family.
Yes.
Yeah.
Simon actually runs my house. I am a slave to my cat.
That's funny. So the question they pose here is how, in this article from Center for Creative Leadership, is how can organizations encourage empathic leadership? So how do we help leaders? And as we remember, leaders, yes, are in formal roles, but you don't have to be in a formal role to be a leader. Anybody who can influence other people, which is all of us. So within an organization, it's important for us to think about talking about empathy.
Yes.
That's a really important thing, that we value it and that we promote people who have empathy and are empathetic leaders.
Well, and I really believe if we make it a conversation, and if we use empathy as something that is talked about normally all the time, it becomes okay. It becomes the norm, and more people will be a little braver about showing empathy and demonstrating what an empathic stance looks like, right?
Yeah.
And so I really do believe that's an engagement thing.
Yes.
If I don't feel like I have an empathic leader, I'm probably not going to give that leader really high marks on an engagement survey. But at the same time, engagement is not just about a survey. Engagement is about how I bring myself to work, right?
Yeah.
I have the right to, and I will bring my discretion. I'll give you discretionary effort, right?
Right.
If I'm not engaged, I'm not going to give a lot of effort to my job.
Yeah.
But if I feel like I have somebody who cares about me and cares about what I do and cares about everybody around me, of course, I'm going to probably give 110% if I can, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And we know that engagement is connected to productivity.
Yes, it
right?
is. It's directly related.
Right. So I just want to make that connection. So empathic leaders actually have more productive employees.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
It's a strength, I'm telling you.
It is. Yeah.
But, the second way that you can encourage empathy in the workplace is to teach listening skills. And I am a huge believer in this.
Yep.
Even the ladder of inference or the ladder of listening, they have different ways of looking at it, but there are so many different ways to show that you're listening. And I've found that people who aren't great listeners, who practice the actual steps of using listening, become better listeners.
Yeah.
Because they've all of a sudden started, like when you nod when somebody's talking, you look them in the eye and you keep that connection going. It's kind of hard not to become a better listener. It kind of opens your ears when you're concentrating on someone else. You're not sitting there thinking about, okay, I got to get my dry cleaning, I need peas at the store, that kind of stuff. Yes. And it's much better. So your body language can tell, other people how you're engaging with them.
Yeah.
And it's not just that. I mean, they're just even coming back with what you've heard, and I'm not talking about parroting, but grabbing something that you heard that kind of resonates with you and expanding on it a little bit. Yeah. That is good listening, right?
Yeah.
And then not listening to tell your story or not listening to argue, right?
Yep.
If you and I talk and we're not getting along, I'm probably going to be just hearing what I want to hear, and I'm probably going to just not engage with you.
Yeah.
And that's never going to happen, Crystal, because we just don't do that. But but I mean, I've seen it happen before, you know. That's usually an indication that there's some conflict going on, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, teaching people how to listen, teach them skills and teach them what different levels of listening really are and how to move away from that is so important.
Yeah. I think one of those that they bring up here that's really important is to not just be listening to the words, but to be listening sort of for the underlying, like what's going on there? Is there values?
The meaning of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good.
Yep.
I've heard people say that's listening between the lines.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Number 3, encourage genuine perspective taking. And this is really, being able to kind of put yourself in that other person's shoes. And it's talking about being able to account for personal lived experiences or perspectives of their employees. And it drives innovation for us to be able to kind of get outside of our own perspective. And I'm doing something because I wanted to do it. It's not just because of this, but I'm actually getting a lot of this perspective shifting as I'm doing it. Is I'm learning guitar. And it's been so hard. I think I've said this on the show. But one of the things that I'm really gaining this new perspective is a learner. So I feel like I've been in this field of organizational development, leadership development, coaching for a while now. I feel very confident in it and trying something that I feel like definitely beginner at. I've never done anything like guitar. I used to play the trumpet back in high school.
There you go.
So I can read music, but it has absolutely nothing to do with with playing the guitar. But this gives me a lot of empathy for my clients who are really trying on new things and doing things in new ways, and it's not always successful. And it's one thing to just say, yeah, that's okay, and encourage it. It's another when you're actually experiencing it kind of in a different way. So I'm having a lot of fun with that. I feel like I have more empathy for my clients and all of the challenges that they're having when they're trying new things.
That is absolutely amazing. Actually, I love that you said that. It kind of also makes me think about, when a new team comes together, everybody comes from their own space, right?
Yeah.
And the beauty of a team where everybody's different is that you have different perspectives, right? Fresh set of eyes, whatever. Everybody's looking at things from a different angle. And that's always, to me, almost always a rich outcome. You'll always get a rich outcome, or you'll have a really rich discussion because everybody's got something that they've either learned or experienced over their lives that has influenced where they are right now. And being able to, as a leader, drink that in can be very, very helpful as you're trying to navigate a challenge a person might be having or a team might be having, right? Yeah. It's, I think that's a wonderful, wonderful metaphor. Thank you so much. Learning guitar is just, I was always told I didn't have long enough arms for guitar. So my next thing is learning the bass. Because I want to learn the bass. Yeah. I am dying to learn the bass. So we'll see. You tell me I can't get my arms that long, I'm going to get my arms that long, right? They didn't have any empathy.
That's right.
The next one is cultivate compassion. Those two words, empathy and compassion, seem to go hand in hand a lot, right? There are gurus out there that actually put the two together and have made whole platforms around empathy and compassion. To me, compassion is about caring. It's about actually, if you need a hug, I'm going to be there. I'm going to give you a hug. But also, I'm going to stand with you. I'm going to have your back. I will be your voice if you want me to be. Yeah. I won't own your issue. But if you're in a state where you can't, I'm going to be that voice for you. I'm going to defend if I need to, right? If it's needed. To me, that it's over and above being your leader or your manager or even your collaborative coworker, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. One thing around compassion, I work with a lot of leaders who I feel like have a lot of compassion, which is a good thing, right? It's a really good thing. And I think it is being supported more now and is seen as a value for leaders. Yes. One of the things when I do group coaching that I find almost in every group, and these are usually people that don't know each other. So it's group coaching versus team coaching, which are people who have a shared goal. The most important thing they get out of it is that they are not alone. They form these bonds with the other people who are generally at the same level of leadership that they are. And they're trying to do the right thing, and they are compassionate with their employees. They are showing empathy, but it can feel lonely as the leader. And so that's one of the best things I think that organizations can do to support this is to give support to to be compassionate towards their leaders who are doing this. And so that comes through a group experience with those leaders so that they can share their experiences with each other and get support at that level.
I really love that. And, it can start with a leader retreat and grow into like a team or group coaching, or even,
manager roundtables.
Yes.
I think people get so much out of that. It doesn't even have to be content based. It's really about them getting support for each other and sharing what's going on for them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh.
Which allows them to show up in a more compassionate and empathetic way with their team.
Well, sure. And you just said that. I was thinking, for those people who are a little reluctant to share empathy because they think it's not a strength, or they're afraid they'll be looked at differently, or people will laugh, or whatever the reason they don't want to do it.
Yeah.
If they have other leaders who share the same, not their view, but share the view of someone who is more empathic, I think that's a point of reference. They may need to actually be able to take that first brave step, right?
Yeah. So the fifth one is support global managers. So the ability of middle managers to be empathic leaders who can collaborate across boundaries, especially important, especially when we've got cross-cultural organizations.
And that is, to me, that's fascinating in a way, because we live in America. We're used to, for the most part in our careers, our American coworkers and our American organizations, but now we are global. Everybody's global pretty much, right?
Yeah.
And it's not what it used to be. Our culture is unique to us, and their cultures are unique to them. And so when we think we're being empathic, it may not be empathic to them.
Yeah.
So to understand and to really listen and learn where they're coming from, where people who aren't where I am, trying to get closer and build community in a global fashion, I think it could go do wonders for not only productivity, right, but also for relations. It's a great way to build sound and solid relations between cultures that are so different.
Yeah.
And we're trying to make a better world. That's what our podcast is all about. Honestly, I can't see how that would be a bad thing to do.
Yeah, no, I've seen this so much. I do so much coaching now that's international, and it's really fun. I really enjoy it. And I also hear the challenges that people have, because many of the people that I'm coaching have these multicultural teams that are made up of people in many different countries. And so bringing them together. And it does take more empathy. It does take time. It takes patience. And we live in a world that is very stressed out. We've got a lot going on. People have big responsibilities, a lot of goals that they're trying to accomplish. And so it does take a little patience and a little bit of time to talk to people, understand what their experience is, and what the leader can do, especially when they're in a different country. What can they do to help the person have a better experience? I
would think that the step, which was number 2, where we're talking about teach listening skills, that would be really important. But also, I think being curious so that you can help other people unpack what they're going through, or what's maybe concerning them, without being nosy. There's a fine line sometimes, because some cultures don't really like to be, they feel like they're being grilled, or they feel like they're being, you're interrogating me. And that's not at all our point. But we are a culture that doesn't have a lot of boundaries when it comes to that kind of thing. We just ask the question, and if you don't like it, that's too bad, right? And it doesn't work that way in the world. We're unique in that sense. I don't think there are a lot of countries that do that normally, or if they do, it might be in a particular circumstance. So being curious, good listeners, and that empathic part is to drink in what you're hearing and pay attention. Yeah. Right? So, I love this.
I know. We could talk on this, I think, all day. Yeah. We are definitely believe that this is a critical piece of leadership.
I do believe that. And I also believe, you and I believe very strongly in in the whole topic of hope.
Yeah.
And I believe that for our world to evolve to what I hope it will be, we really need to employ more empathy. We need to make empathy the norm and not the exception.
Yeah, absolutely. It is the linchpin for making a better world.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So we were going to close today with a poem, speaking of heart.
Yes.
So poetry oftentimes is a way for us to connect to our heart. And we thought we would try something that I recently learned about, which is that ChatGPT will write poetry for you.
Oh boy.
But I really liked it. So I just put in there, write a short poem about empathic leadership. Mm-hmm. And here's what it came up with. And this is what we're going to leave you with today. So, in the heart of a leader, a gentle light glows, listening deeply where compassion flows. With open arms, they embrace every voice, creating a space where all hearts rejoice. They see the struggles, the dreams yet unfurled. With empathy's wisdom, they nurture the world. Guiding with kindness, they inspire and mend. In the tapestry of teamwork, they weave and they tend. I was like, that's so perfect for what we're talking about today. And it is about healing.
Yes,
it is about healing. If you actually have a leader, even if you have a friend, right? And I think of you, Trisha, as a person who has a lot of empathy. Oh. When that person sits with you when you're going through a tough time and really listens and you know they're with you, it just changes your world. It does make a better world. Yeah.
Back at you. I do believe that too. I think it takes nothing. You know, honestly, at the end of our day, it takes a nanosecond to just pay attention and reach out and listen and be kind and do all these things that to me are going to make somebody's life a little better, I hope, you know, or at least make them feel like they mattered.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's important.
Right. That you matter. That's what we all want, right? We want to be seen and know that we've made a difference and that we matter. So let's keep the conversation going. If you have questions or comments about the show, you can find us on all our social media channels at lifting_leaders. We have so many exceptional podcast episodes coming up with more fantastic guests, so be sure to subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen. If you know someone who would find this episode inspiring, share it with them. Text them, email them, or take a screenshot and share it on your Instagram and tag us at lifting_leaders. If you'd like to know more about us, our guests, or the show, please go to our website at liftingleaderspodcast.com. You'll find our show notes there as well. If you're looking for help in developing our leaders or would like a growth opportunity yourself through leader coaching, please contact us through our website at www.liftingleaderspodcast.com. Thank you to Ari Chance Roberts for his technical support of our show. Finally, please take 30 seconds and follow us. It helps you because you never miss an episode, and it helps us because you never miss an episode. To follow us, go to the Lifting Leaders Podcast Show on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Then just tap the plus sign in the upper right-hand corner or click on follow. While you're there, if you'd be willing to give us a 5-star rating and review and share the podcast with a friend, we'd be so grateful. It does really matter when people do that. It helps our podcast get seen.
Yay.
Thank you, Trisha, for another fun episode.
Oh, thanks, Crystal. I loved it.
Many thanks to you, our listeners. We appreciate you. Find ways every day to lift each other up. Have a fantastic week.
Take care.